Hello, Pathfinders, and welcome to the after party where Rick regrets his life choices.
Welcome, Pathfinders.
You don't get to say that. You're not in charge
No,
of
you're
this
not in
pod.
charge anymore.
Yeah.
You lost those privileges.
She didn't say welcome, Pathfinders.
We've had a coup.
She doesn't have to. She's the one in charge. She makes the
said
call.
hello, Pathfinders.
I said hello, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. So we're going to try a different
Hello, Clarice.
approach, and I'm going to run this little round table after party for better or for worse. So this is our after party number 8 for the episodes in the Temple of the Erudite Eye.
22, 23, 24.
Yep. Basically, where the group came in, fought some skelly jackals, fought a scary div, fought an elemental, followed a path left by the Scorched Hand, left all their magic in a box, went downstairs.
Not all the magic.
Except Sagira and Sitra.
On accident on my part, I will just say.
Fair. And then what did we do? We found a secret entrance. We found like that, some world-ending catastrophe thing is missing. And then we entered a room where there was a skeleton waiting on us. Well, not on us necessarily, but like he was chilling in there.
Like last crusade sort of waiting.
Yeah.
Wasn't there the whole silver chain in there too?
No.
No,
Was
not
that
in these.
part of it?
There was like a fountain, like we splashed around the
Well,
fountain.
yeah. I mean, there was we found out that episode 22 starts with the
started.
jackal fight.
Starts with the deflated jackals.
Ah, okay.
So my first question about this is, what does that fountain do?
What should it have done?
Yeah.
That was-
Did it do
we
anything?
were good little nethices.
Nethites, I believe.
For the moment,
Nethians?
I won't go into a deep cut on it. I will say it does give a benefit.
If you follow Nethys,
Do
probably.
you have to follow Nethys?
Do you have to not throw
Let's say
shit in it?
everyone in the party wouldn't benefit from it.
Oh.
Also, throwing crap into the fountain probably doesn't help.
Well, yeah, we
But
saw how that ended up.
Well,
I'm
that
sorry,
was
everyone.
The story with this fountain, let's just say it's not over yet.
Okay.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because
So you guys did find the fountain in that episode,
Yeah,
after you fought the
yeah.
jackals.
If people thought I was crazy, we have actually played in adventures where there have been offerings to deities. I have put down a coin and gotten a buff.
Yeah,
So
but
that is
obviously
something I
not
have
a
done before.
fountain that has no other coins in it and a god of magic. It's not Abadar.
Hey, I didn't know if that little guy was scooping. Well, actually, I didn't know that guy existed at the time, but he could have been scooping up all those coins and had a little
He
treasure
then
trove like his own
made
dragon.
himself known.
I want to know what triggered the golem
Oh,
downstairs.
that's a different episode.
Yeah, you're jumping way ahead.
I don't care. That's my question.
Okay.
I do.
We will table that question for later.
I do want to know about that div.
The div, yes.
Yeah, because that
Yes,
was a
you did get
really
into a good
interesting fight to have a sandstorm inside of a temple.
Did he speak Terran?
No, he did not.
Okay,
He's
fine.
a div. That doesn't. That's not the.
Well, he was
playing.
Sandy. I don't know.
See, I wanted to know
I
if
believe
he
he
was
had abyssal, infernal, and celestial.
Oh, I
none
speak
of those.
celestial,
I got
but
that.
you know.
Well,
I
you
don't
weren't
know if
going to
he was-
think, you know what? Angel language.
Well, he also doesn't speak. He tried
Oh,
to
yeah.
telepathically communicate with Sagira
It was weird.
because he was just trying to figure out whether or not you spoke a language that he did, so he could start using his suggestion spells.
Oh, man. I'm glad Sagira knows no
Those
languages.
those wouldn't have worked on yours because he's not a person. So
It's true. Okay, so any other questions
isn't
from
it
this episode?
charm and stuff?
Charm person.
yeah.
I'm still curious as to what flayed the jackals.
Was it the div? Was it the
Or the
guy with
barefoot
the
man.
shoes?
I have
With
a
no
feeling
shoes?
like that's
So
still
this is a host kind of thing, but I'm curious. Show of hands is not a literal show of hands. How many people think it was the Scorched Hand, and how many people think it's Barefoot guy?
I still think it's the scorched
I think
hand.
it's div.
No,
Yeah, you
I
think
don't
of the
think he
div.
has that
You're
kind of
thinking-
power.
Necromancy.
You're thinking
My-
of Scorched Hand?
I think
Yeah,
it's a scorched
I'm
hand.
going on Scorched Hand too.
Scorched Hand?
I didn't get the vibe of the Scorched Hand being evil. Cocky,
You don't have
yes,
to be evil
but
to use necromancy.
still, that just seems... People have an inherent love of animals. If you don't, you're psychotic, let's be honest. That's the reason why in movies, all the people can die, but if you hurt that dog, I'm going to have an issue.
Valeriana kind of gives me a very neutral or evil vibe, just the way she acts. I
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
she's
Well,
good
she-
aligned.
She seems evil, but she has, now I feel like maybe she had a point in trying to find this site so, ruthlessly.
We don't know if that's what she was after, though.
No.
She might have just wanted to come here because it's a temple of Nethys, for all we know.
I mean, maybe, but she seemed really, intense about it.
Yeah.
Like
she
broke
knew
in instead of
something
just-
we didn't.
She tried to just, she could have waited around for someone to come out of it and, buy the stuff. She seemed like she had money. But she, wanted to get it herself.
I still don't
What
think we
kind
can
of
trust
evil
them.
do you think?
What?
You're guessing that she's evil.
Yeah, I think she's
What kind
evil.
of evil?
Probably neutral evil because
Think
she's
neutral
willing to
evil?
break the law and stuff to do what she needs to
yeah,
do.
that's a fair point.
And follower of Nethys.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Neutral. Yeah.
What about her cohorts?
Well, we know the cleric's good aligned because he channeled positive energy.
Or he's true neutral.
So yeah, he could
Yeah.
be.
Well, he could be any of the neutrals.
He could be any of the neutrals that are
Did we
evil.
see who he followed? I don't know if
They all follow
They all
Nethys.
follow
They all
the
follow.
group,
That's right.
except for
Wait.
Idori.
Adori does not.
Okay, anything from that episode? What else? That was the div fight. That was the first half of the div fight. Then we had the second half of the div fight.
And we just kind of followed the scorched hand around the temple.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Or
I'm
at least
gonna actually
we
pick
think.
something that I read about it on a comment on Reddit that I really liked because it was a really interesting point that I hadn't really thought of. So that's why I really like reading comments and stuff from.
Do you know
fans.
who made the comment?
Dyslexic and loving it.
Yeah, I think
Was it
that's who did
dyslexic?
it.
Yeah, basically the gist of the comment is that what's really interesting about that fight is that the sandstorm is dynamic. It's not, here's a flat penalty that you take just because it's a sandstorm. I didn't even think about that, but it was one of those things, like I actually liked it also that we rolled too, so it was more like what we saw,
Yeah.
which was actually really cool. I
think-
didn't think about that being just a flat penalty normally.
I decided to go with that at the spur of the moment. I think mechanically I'm supposed to bounce a die and determine how far all of you can see during that turn until it comes back around to maybe when the ability triggered.
I don't know, that was a more
But
interesting way.
Well, and you guys were so scattered about
Yeah.
that I thought it worked well, where Sitra felt like she was isolated because at one point, I think for 2 rounds, she couldn't see anyone else in the party. They just left her with an elemental in the middle of a sandstorm.
Thanks,
got
guys.
Yeah, we got you.
You were fine.
Teamwork.
I didn't know that.
All right, so
Well, I have a question for all of you. So, a little peek behind the curtain here, because that's just kind of what we're doing on this. That div could cast Bestow Curse at will.
That's insane.
What?
I have read some encounters where people have like walked in and managed to kill like the first round of combat through just sheer dumb luck and critical hits.
Yeah.
But I have read some where one guy said that it got off 14 Bestow Curses
Holy.
that the
There-
party filled.
There are some times where I think the challenge ratings are a little skewed.
yeah.
Like, Bestow Curse at will on a challenge rating 4 monster is bananas.
Well, I guess my question here is, what do you think about permanent status effects?
I think that if you're going to throw something at us that has permanent stat effects like that, it should only be able to do it 2 or 3 times a day. Because at this level, your healers literally cannot do anything about this. Like, even if we had an opportunity to rest,
Right.
Onuris
Nothing.
can't do squat because it's permanent. We're going to have to go scrounging around to the other temples to try to find restoration
Or
spells.
remove curse.
I feel like if you're fighting something that's equal to or lower than your challenge rating, you should be able to get rid of the effects it gives you. You know, or it's like it can do it once per day, so only one person is totally hosed instead of everyone in the party's stats are all down by 12. Have fun.
Yeah. And as an interesting thing, even if it was only able to do it thrice per day, it wouldn't have changed that combat at all because it only tried it 3 times.
I know, I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm just saying
But you just said a group did it 14 times.
Yeah.
that's
crazy.
how do you even continue on at that point? I mean,
That's like 14 rounds of combat. How long was that fight for us? I don't think it was 14
It was
rounds.
long, but not that
I
long.
think it ran 7 or 8. It could also dimension door at will.
like,
I know,
yeah.
it totally ruined
Yeah,
my
I
once
just-
a day ability of elemental
The
assault.
funny thing about it, though, is you said it had a gaze attack.
Yeah.
So it kicked up a sandstorm that actually hurt its ability to use its gaze attack.
Yes.
So there's kind of an interesting thing there also, but
Well, it also I think works to its advantage because we're stumbling around trying to find it, and then when we do, we're immediately have its gaze. You
Stunned
can't
by it.
you can't do the
prepare.
thing like you would if it was a clear thing where okay, I look away and I take a penalty.
Yeah.
You can't. That was nigh impossible to do in that fight because you didn't know where it was.
I will say I very much enjoyed that fight for a couple of different reasons, just to give a kind of a GM standpoint on it. First off, I hope we got across some of this to all of you guys. Other than just the storm being dynamic, it also utilized almost the entirety of the room.
Yeah,
There was
that was
a lot of
big
moving,
room.
there was a lot of ducking and moving around. And so I appreciated that element of it, just because I like to incorporate the entire room, be able to send it around. I also liked how everyone in that fight pretty well contributed. Even Onuris, who actually, I think, only really did one thing in that fight. That one thing he did was stun the creature and lock it in place so it could get sneak attacked and stab the crap out of.
Yep.
So it was actually, I think it was a really good fight for all of you all around. Just, it's interesting because that was pretty much the opening to this set of 3 episodes, and then for the following episodes, the entire party is just weakened.
Yeah, and I mean, I get probably what they're going for there, but I really don't like it when monsters have abilities that you can't, after the fact, get rid of. We're
Yeah.
stuck with this until we get back to town. If
Yeah.
we're in this temple another 7 episodes, Onuris' strength is going to be at an 8 that entire time.
Well,
Wow.
and there's a play style that we have that a lot of people apparently don't have, where we pretty much go until we are out of resources. We push through probably when it may not even be the best idea to do that. And in this case, we actually have an impetus of we want to stop the scorched hand, but we've also had this happen before where basically we run out of healing, and only then are we like, okay, we need to stop and take a rest, especially if it's like a dungeon crawl or something like that, because there are probably groups that have gone in, they have 2 or 3 encounters, say, and then leave, go rest up, take it again.
Yeah,
so
but
we've been
that's-
going really fast.
It's like
It-
you
this-
guys
that
left
har-
in the Tomb of Akhuntepe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That harkens back to the realism conversation we had before. That it is unrealistic to go halfway through a dungeon that has intelligent creatures in it, and the party jets and rests and come back, and for the monsters who are still in the dungeon to have stayed in their little room and not gone to investigate what the orc, like if it was an orc tribe.
Yeah.
Why haven't the other orcs come out and gone, half of our friends are dead? You know what I mean? It just...
That video game logic, when they find a dead body, they search for you for about 30 seconds,
Oh,
and they go,
well.
well, I guess he wandered
Yeah,
off.
I mean, like I said, it harkens back to that
Or
realism thing, and I think us as a group, we kind of keep that in mind. Right now, we could leave and we could go to a temple and we could pay for remove curses. We have the money for it, but then by the time we get back, who the heck knows where the scorched hand is going to be? Who the heck knows if this barefoot guy is still around somewhere? I mean, it's not realistic for the group to leave right now, not unless something insane happens at this point.
Yeah.
Speaking of insane, we all leveled up kind of after that div fight in that episode, end of it.
Yeah, the end of that, we did something and we leveled up right at the very end.
I can tell you,
It might have been disabling that trap.
Oh, I think it might have
was.
been.
it was a trap. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what we all got in our
So,
level up.
yeah, episode 24, yeah, the newest one is the one where we were 4th level.
Yep, and we
Yeah.
had some of our new abilities.
Oh, you're looking at me like you want
I'm
me to
looking
start.
at Jordan. You go.
Okay, so Sudi obviously still a monk, now 4th level. For Unchained Monks, that gives him actually a +2 bonus versus enchantments, +1 to his AC, the standard +1 base attack bonus, all that stuff. That's not too cool.
That's not too sexy.
Yeah, what is actually cool is getting a key power, which I took key metabolism, which I was looking through them all and I was like, this seems really cool and something that will probably down the road save my life. So key metabolism causes you to only have, as long as you have a key point in your key pool, you eat and drink 1/4 as much as usual. You only have to sleep for 2 hours a night, even to regain your key pool, and you can hold your breath for 1 hour per Constitution score.
Well, Sudi learned his lesson from the sarcophagus.
Yeah, well, that's why I was like, this is going to save my life in the future, because now if I get swallowed...
If I get swallowed again, Sudi's like, I live here now.
Yeah, but also it's like, the big things that always kill people that I'm always afraid of dying from is suffocation, usually from drowning, and falling. And so being able to be like, okay, well, suffocating is less likely, I think is cool. So yeah, that was my big thing that I got that I was like, oh, that's super cool. I definitely have to talk about that.
Cool. Rach.
I too am playing an Unchained character. I've actually really enjoyed playing an Unchained rogue. This is the second time I've done it. One of the best features that I think they added to it was the debilitating injury, where basically if I get a sneak attack off, I get to choose a category to debilitate my foe. So I can either take off from their attack rolls, lower their AC, or slow down their movement speed. Not only does it take off like the -2 at this level, it ups like every 4th level, so I think it goes up at like 8th and 16th, but it's double for my character.
We totally used that
Yeah.
to make sure that statue would stop hitting us.
So that is probably the best thing that my character got at this level.
I think that actually probably saved you from at least one
At
additional
least
hit.
one, yeah.
Yeah.
Heather.
I mean, I'm a cleric, so
You're a cleric.
not much.
Spells.
Hey!
You got some spells.
Yeah, I got another 1st and 2nd level spell, and my wisdom went up by 1. So yeah, that's it. Odd levels are the way more exciting levels for me.
Let's see. Sagira, I actually took a level of Brawler. the wild child archetype, so I could still get my kitty.
So kind of weirded out by your cat mystically appearing.
She's magical.
But animals do that in real life, though. Dogs will, like, track their owners halfway across the freaking country.
I want to know
so-
how she got past the.
Cats randomly showing up places is probably the least weird thing.
I don't know. How did she get past the voices of the spire and through town? People
just
were
went
just
up the wall.
like.
Probably jumped over the wall.
She just leaped a wall and slinked her way around. I don't
I
know.
mean, as long as she's not like that cat from the video, you know, where it's like on the fence and it jumps toward the barn roof and just
It
goes
just
straight
fails.
down.
Yeah, it just goes straight down.
I hope that would not be the case.
Well, no, I'm saying obviously it's not.
Natural one.
I mean, it could be, I guess, with the net one.
Yeah.
So with brawlers, I can now kind of use a move action to get a combat feat that I don't have, that I meet the prerequisites for. So I get power attack, which I don't have normally. Or I can get improved grapple for use against grappling, because apparently that's a thing that we do a lot. Sagira grapples a lot of things.
Secretly,
and then-
you were on the wrestling team.
I was a little disappointed you didn't grapple the golem.
I was not going to grapple the golem.
I put it in a headlock.
That's it for cool stuff that I got. So it's kind of fun. Yeah. So that brings us to the third episode, 24.
Yeah, 24. I want to know what triggered that statue.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, so that one pretty much started with you guys dropping all of your items. Well, the last one ended with you dropping all of your items in that
And then we went downstairs and then we got attacked.
Yep. You,
Immediately.
entered
That
the
golem.
Yeah.
Or contract,
catacomb antechamber. Long story short, it's Statue of Nethys, the Guardian silently animates.
If
Pretty much as once you guys start making your way down there. Interestingly enough, Sitra actually got a perception roll on the statue, not just to notice things about the statue, but to actually notice that the statue was spellcasting.
Oh.
The statue kicked in haste before you guys walked into it.
Oh, that's why I was getting three
so
attacks.
what, it just attacks anyone that walks down there?
The Guardian silently animates and attacks anyone not openly wearing or displaying the holy symbol of
Yeah.
Nethys.
I was right.
Dang it, scorched hand.
Cool. Terrible.
That
But
also
that
means
probably
that-
it probably still attacked them because they're what's her name, Iori?
Idori.
Idori wouldn't have had a holy
that
Unless they
also-
recognized the statue and gave her a holy
Yeah,
symbol.
unless
You don't
they
have to
did.
worship the deity, you can just be wearing a
Yeah.
holy symbol.
Yeah, that also makes me wonder if Barefoot Guy or Gal had a holy symbol too,
Somebody else fought it.
because somebody else fought it exactly.
So barefoot guy or gal or person. Barefoot human being or elf or being.
Barefoot
The,
it.
the
barefoot
barefoot entity.
humanoid.
And the barefoot medium-sized humanoid, you know?
Yes, yes.
Getting very specific.
All right.
Of some indeterminate subspecies.
Correct.
Point out one other thing about that encounter that I thought was interesting but didn't actually come into play. So the Grieving Guardians are interesting because they actually get a domain. This one, assorted abilities include the fact that its quarterstaff, for all mechanical purposes, counted as keen. I just never managed to get a 19.
Oh man.
But
Good.
I did appreciate it. To be fair, it had plus 11, plus 11, plus 6 for
I
its
would've been on the
attacks.
ground.
So
Sweet.
it was, even if Onuris was wearing his armor or Sagira was at full dexterity, it would have probably still
I don't
hit both
know.
of
My
you
armor and my
readily.
shield on yours has a 19 armor class. It rolled higher than that a few times, but it would have missed me.
Yeah, I mean, for
Now
the
I'm
first
wondering
two
if I
attacks, it
should have
was
left my armor behind.
You should have put it on.
That's an interesting question.
But I mean, we're not through this dungeon yet, so
Well, and
I will
Onuris
ask
is-
about that when we leave.
Onuris is real faithful, so he would have
He
been.
is
Anything else from this episode?
just the plot hook
I was
for
going to
the
say
rest
it's
of the
the
a
plot
adventure.
rather giant plot hook.
Mask.
I'm sure that's probably it's a mask, and we're playing Mummy's
Mask.
mask.
You know, if this is like the hook, right? The thing I always look for is what is the title of the adventure path, and if that's the mummy's mask, like the title one, it's not on a mummy. It's on a
Mask?
statue. It's just a mask.
What if
Well,
it was on a mummy?
And also the
If that
whole
faceless thing is a mummy.
the Egyptians believed that your ka returned to your mummy every night. That's how you got up and walked around in the physical world. So if this mask has something to do with his ka and his ka is not at rest,
That's because it's not with his body.
yeah. So theoretically, you would have to take the mask to the mummy for it to reawaken this forgotten pharaoh.
But they would separate it because it's dangerous together.
See, I didn't even go to that place.
Yeah.
So that makes a lot more sense.
They William Wallace this guy. Like instead of
We've gone into a totally different mythology now.
Instead
Over
of
the next 5
quartering him.
books, you're going to be finding individual body parts to bring them back together.
Hey, this
yes.
is not Buffy. That's what they did with the judge.
You know, that's a pretty.
There's our
this-
once per after party Buffy reference.
You hit your quota and stuff.
Whatever, he got blown up by Azuka because Buffy is awesome.
Fair
Anywho.
enough.
But yeah, I mean that's my thought on it anyway. If this is his funeral mask, and his cause not at
You wanna
rest,
keep
they'd
it
want to
away.
keep it away from his mummy to stop him from returning in the
By
legions of the
rising
undead.
back up, yeah.
Scorpion
So-
King style.
No, so I'm sure it's an artifact and it has some redonkulous requirements to destroy it, and that's why they just set it down here
Well,
in the
considering
temple.
that the spot it was in was still blazing with
Yeah.
magic, like it couldn't be anything else other than either an artifact or something that's deifically touched, which makes
Well, Brick used the words deific magic when
Yeah, sure.
Onuris
So
almost
it's-
blacked out from looking at it.
It generates overwhelming magic, which to clarify that for listeners as well, an aligned item or spell to be overwhelming must be a higher than 9th level spell, which basically means mythic spellcasting or
Yep.
caster level of 21 or higher.
Yeah, see, it's
Yeah,
an
so
it's an
mythic.
artifact.
Yes, it's definitely an artifact.
So the question is Rick also pointed out that the mask is only half bad mojo and the other half was okay. So what's the chance that this forgotten guy ain't so bad?
What if you put the mask on and you become the forgotten guy?
Well, it's also the three parts, the thrice divided. So there's Ka, Ba, and Ib. So you'd have to have all three pieces basically to put him back together if you're going to go that route. So it's possible that this may be the first part, and then there's another part.
We are all now on an episode of Legend of the Hidden Temple,
Oh, good gracious, you're right.
and we have to find the three pieces and put them together to save the world or
Before the
destroy
timer
it.
runs out.
I always
Before
wanted
the
to
timer
slap
runs
those people that had to assemble the statue thing, and they're putting like the wrong pieces in what order. It's like
Apparently,
it's in size order. You
I read an
idiots.
article about that, and apparently they don't. It doesn't fit together that easily. Like
does-
it
it
looks a
doesn't- it
lot
doesn't fit.
easier than it is on TV than it actually is.
Huh.
Apparently, like the way the pieces are cut and the way they click together is actually like surprisingly difficult.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right,
There's
we're gonna
a-
move on now. Okay. So what do we think about the Scorched Hand now?
I still don't think she was here for that mask. I still don't trust them.
I mean, I've got the feeling that Sudi does, and I even commented on it as Sudi. They are breaking the law and literally offending Pharasma
Yeah.
by
Onuris
coming in
is-
here. So I have no sympathy for them, and I also think that is at minimum a chaotic act, but possibly an evil act.
They're specifically breaking the laws of the city and the entire nation of Osirian at this point.
Well, they're chaotic. That doesn't mean evil.
See, I guess maybe because I'm playing more Sitra,
Are you neutral or chaotic?
I am neutral good.
Okay.
But it feels more like desperation. If you really are going against everything that this country has set up and this city has set up to do this, and desperate to get to this location, there's got to be a reason other than I'm an Ethis follower and this is an ancient site.
It's just
like
something about the arrogance of every time we've talked to her is what's off-putting me. She hasn't had like a desperation. It's an I need to get here because I'm important is
Well,
what the
I don't
attitude she's
know.
given me.
She's not a nice person, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she could have the air of like none of these peons are worth my time, but I have to talk to them because I must find this site. It doesn't necessarily mean she's going to like beg people, you know.
I don't know. My years of gaming experience, I just have the vibe.
But Kelru is nice. Kelru is pretty friendly, and he he definitely channels good, so he can't be evil. So I mean, he's along for the ride. So yeah, she could be not nice. She's not nice. But the rest of her party isn't necessarily terrible.
I mean, the other kid is just with Kelru. He's just kind of there.
And then she could.
Yeah.
She's also not from here. She could have the air of like, oh, these idiotic Osiriani with their stupid rules getting in my way.
Oh yeah, she's Talbot,
Yeah.
isn't she?
Yeah, she's not
that
here.
that could explain a lot.
I don't know.
It's
I
also
don't.
suspected that she was Taldane nobility.
Yeah, she's
She
real-
kind of has
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
So she's
vibe.
effectively a British noblewoman tromping down into
Yeah.
Egypt.
I don't like her.
I don't
but
like her.
I think she has more to her than we were thinking previously. Yeah, I'm hoping she was looking for that mask, and I'm hoping when we find them, we learn more about what that is.
Or maybe if they didn't even know it was a mask, but they knew there was something here that caused the plague, or something that messed the world up.
Because Nephis has a lot of archives and stuff not too far from here. It's across a strait.
It's across an ocean. The one in
I'm talking
Kadira.
about the Kadiran place.
Yeah, that's literally across the inner sea.
That's on the other side of the inner sea is
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
Whatever that library is called.
I want to say Mysterium.
And they have all sorts of knowledge. So, I mean,
Well, and Sothis is almost the capital of, not only it's the capital of Osirian, but also the primary focus for the Church of Nethys.
Yeah,
like,
so I
it's
mean-
huge. And
She
I
could
don't know.
have
I just think it's weird that if they were sitting on this, that they waited until now to show up and by the chance of the lottery. If they're willing to break all the rules and go in anyway, they wouldn't have waited for the lottery to do it.
Well, they may have been scared of trying to go, like, getting into the half-dead city before was way more dangerous than pretending to do the lottery and getting into the half-dead city.
Yeah, it gets
Yeah,
them
it was
through
a
the
cover.
gate.
Also,
Yeah, it gets
there
them through the
seems to
gate.
be like a sudden, someone wanted that suddenly kind of a thing.
Or maybe there was a real chance now that someone else could
Oh,
find it.
right, because it's open. Maybe they were just relying on the spire to guard it because nobody's supposed to go in there anyway.
Yeah. I don't know. Lots of theories. We'll find out. And
Let us know if you have any of your theories.
Yes,
of
theories.
yourselves,
Tweet us,
readers.
theories.
Please tweet us, Reddit us.
Use hashtag #FindThePathPod.
Yeah, because we'd also like to know what your theories are.
All right, so now we're going to do some shout-outs. The first shout-out is out to Nerds on Earth with Clave Jones.
Click Jones.
Put out an article about Horus, which is, Onuris' favorite deity.
I like that article a lot.
And he gave us a little shout-out, so we're going to give him a little shout-out. Some quid pro quo, I suppose.
just throwing this out, something about the name Clave Jones sounds like it should be like the alternate identity for some sort of superheroes or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
Clave,
so-
Clave
where I always
Jones,
go.
real-life vigilante.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe.
little do we
Maybe.
know.
We're making up Clave's backstory.
He'll
What
appreciate
class?
that.
What class would he be if he was a real
Yes.
person, or he was a Pathfinder person?
Extra bonus points for anyone that stats out Clave Jones vigilante.
Anyway,
Jones.
It's like if he's a vigilante, like what's it like? Is he Batman? Like what?
the Earth Nerd.
Yes, Earthman.
Earth Nerd
Original.
Terrible name.
Captain Planet.
Planet.
Basically Captain Planet.
And now we've hit our
Jones.
prerequisite 90s like references.
Clave Jones is left.
Clave's gonna be like, what
Hey,
is wrong with you
Clave.
people?
Get at us. We will give you your identity later. All right. So, interesting, fun news, I guess. Sazak.
Sazak. That's what I'm going with. I don't actually.
On Twitter. Your
Yes.
Twitter handle, @Sazak.
I'm ashamed of this one.
Corrected Rick, which is an awesome.
Whoa,
Please
whoa, whoa,
add
whoa.
us all the time.
Whoa, full stop. Rick got something wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was like, what?
Already ready.
Impossible.
I am at least 98% human.
Working on those 2%. Okay.
Celestial.
He
What
says,
did you get wrong?
listening to the newest ep a few minutes in, and I found what I believe is the first mistake you guys have made with the rules. Stabilizing with the heal skill does not take uses of the healer's kit unless you choose to use it for a +2 bonus.
It is true.
That is correct.
Oh.
Which means, thanks, Sazak, you gave us some charges of our healer's kit back.
It's true.
Yay.
Like a bunch of them.
Onuris can do some treat deadly wounds, which seems to be necessary right
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna really wish I had you do that. Really wish.
now. Before I got stabbed by this grave knight.
I hope it's not a grave night.
you
I
said
love
you didn't
grave
describe it with
knights.
armor.
Then we had an email. We have 2 emails this week. So TJ from West Crown, poor West Crown.
I love West
He specifically
Crown.
requested West Crown.
West
Yes.
Crown's the best.
I choose to believe it's West Crown before Council of Thieves. So
Oh no.
good luck with those shadows.
No.
Don't go out at night.
Don't go out at night. I mean, that's pretty good advice anywhere, even in Ustalav. He says, good evening to all you wonderful players and Game Master. And if anyone else needs to read this because Rick hates reading positive comments, hand it off to somebody. I'm
This was
somebody.
the only way it was going to get read.
It's me. It's a me, somebody. Thank you for making a difficult time much more bearable for me. Stuck at home because of asthma and the California wildfires. Ugh. Imagine my surprise when I stumbled across your podcast and the quality of playing that made it not just a distraction, but an inspiration for my own game mastering.
Oh.
Yeah, very nice.
Aw, thank you.
And our hearts do go out to everyone that is having to deal with the wildfires out there. So
Yeah. And
we wish
everybody
nothing but the
affected by
best for
Gosh, both
you.
the coasts are like
having a
hard
time.
issues. Gosh, we got fires on one end and water on the
Yeah,
other.
we heart you guys
We
that
need
are
to
on the
bring them in the
coast. Poor Sudi's searching of that one room under a suggestion spell. And did he ever get that arrow out of his back? Sagira's new revelation about her family and the loss of her mother. Onuris' hallucinogenic tour of Wati under the effect of the plague of madness. And why did he want to go to that pharaoh's house? Citra's delightful flirts with a certain rogue and that poor symbol she drew for his shield. It's
Aw.
lucky.
He believed in it, so it was okay.
It's placebo.
Belief is all that matters.
Well, belief won't actually stop a mummy, as was proven by the fact that he may have mummy rot.
I need to go check on him after.
Well, if we ever get out of here. And of course, Rick's nonstop details, both rich and vibrant, that add both to the world and the combat scenes in vast variety.
Thank you, TJ.
They've all made lying still for long hours at a time bearable. Yeah. So now we got some questions. First of all, in all my years game mastering for Pathfinder and D&D's many previous editions since first, I must admit I had never considered adding such depth and texture to simple module comments like Rick has for this Mummy's Mask adventure path. The other foreign adventurers, the tension with the voices of the Spire, and the crumbling Wati economy, even the bar and inn scenes with NPC romances and drunken statue climbing. I doff my cap to thee, Rick.
Well, thank
I like that. You've given a high bar for me to go back and rewrite my next adventure to, and I salute you.
Yep.
Bravo.
Well, thank you. I talked a little bit on the subreddit with someone pertaining towards something very close to this, and I made an analogy that I think was a little forced, but I think it works. Paizo does a great job of providing a framework, a house, if you will, and then putting up the walls and everything else, and then you can run it as is, and as is, the stories are great, but the stories are designed with the intent of being changed and modified, using this analogy for the Game Master to come in and put in furniture to make it look the way he wants to, and paint the walls, and add all of those other minor details and elements to make the players feel connected to the story. Makes the story your group story, which makes it different, makes our playthrough of this different from every other Mummy's Mask playthrough.
Number 2. I've been puzzling over this since episode 14 with Imanesh.
Uh-huh.
If they had him pinned and cold iron arrows, is there a reason they didn't coup de grace him?
Because we're dumb and we didn't think about it. There's one reason.
100% did not think about it.
Yeah, because I mean, when you're in the moment, I mean, technically we're not physically doing it, but we are trying to like process through everything. Like, oh my god,
We don't do a whole lot of coup de grace. Like, that's just not a thing we do.
I think I could probably count on one hand how many times we've done it in all the games.
As a
Yeah.
story element to it, I appreciate the fact that, yes, you could have thought of that. But there is always this top-down tactical view that everyone has when you're playing this game, because you are literally looking down at a map and deciding how you're going to do things tactically and figuring out every 5-foot square. And so I actually kind of appreciate the fact that you guys were just as frustrated as your characters.
Yeah.
Going,
Oh,
it's like, I
so
can't damage this thing. I
frustrated.
can't do anything to this thing. It's turning invisible until finally Jessica's just like, you know what? I'm just going to hold it and beat it into the ground until it stops. And the meantime, Sudi's digging around through a room playing a game of Jumanji. And I think Rachel couldn't roll above a freaking 5 or 6 for most of that fight, because she was just shooting off arrows into the middle of the into the far door. And so I sometimes feel like the frustration of things translates over, and you'll even
I'm not
see
gonna.
that
I'm not
sometime.
gonna lie. The more frustrated I get, the more I forget about the stuff my characters
Yeah.
can do.
I'm just going to keep doing this one thing until it's dead.
Yeah, it kind of came up a little bit in episode 24, where Onuris is in here and he needs to be doing something, and just Heather playing the character goes, "I'm standing here with no freaking armor."
Yep.
Just, and then
Sagira's gonna
much
try.
like the shirtless Conan, he took a 5-foot step back and then hid behind the ranger. So yeah, and sometimes you're just in the moment and you just kind of have to think as your character. Is the excuse that I'm going to use for them not just remembering.
It
said rule,
is one of
'cause-
those things, like when you really get into the role play, you do kind of forget that stuff because you're the character, right? And so
Yeah, and Onuris' intelligence is still a little bit drained too. So it's one of those. He has a headache. His strength is drained. He has no armor. It's like, what the am I doing?
I'm still a little crazy.
It is kind of funny that like when you're playing through something and your character's been going through the slog, your dice rolls will sometimes start reflecting that.
I don't.
And
Yes, and
weird.
it's like.
Oh, your character would not roll well on that. And so then we kind of just incorporate it into the story. Like, yeah, well, they have this, and this. It makes sense.
yeah,
That roll-
we do a
that roll
lot of
makes sense.
justifying for our dice's misbehaving.
Which I actually encourage everyone to do, because it does kind of flow with the story to sometimes just say, like...
Well, like when I totally
Sagira-
made that awful roll to try to aid Sagira in combat. It's like Onuris has an 8 strength. He's just like, eh.
Thank you, Dice.
Thank you,
also,
Crit.
we're not a group that does crit failures. We don't do the whole, like, and your sword swings out and hits your friend, and now they're dead. We don't do any of that.
The greatest swordsman in the world has a 5% chance to stab his buddy in the eye.
Yeah.
All right.
Throw his sword off a cliff.
Throwing in, like, reasons that you fail makes things fun when you fail a lot. Take my word for it.
True.
Moving along, TJ's question number 3. I love after-party sessions when the players describe their thought processes and particularly their character inspirations. I myself had a character inspired 20 years ago by a new romance and decided to make a character based on him. And he turned out to be my longest running and most in-depth character I'd ever played. And yes, in case you're wondering, I married that nerd.
Yay.
Yeah,
for
good
you.
for you.
Put a ring on it. Anyway,
Yes, he did.
My question for the players is, have you ever made a character based on a love interest or enemy, and how did that change you if it did?
I don't think I ever made a character based. I mean, I made characters based on like video game characters and stuff, but never on a real person.
I've never made a character that's based on a real person because, and this is probably going to sound terrible, none of them would be good adventurers.
Hey, I'm personally offended.
Oh yeah, right. Jess.
No, I include myself in that. Like, I would not be a good adventurer.
Jordan and I were just joking around earlier about how we would die in like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, well, it's like when I go to the gym, like I was joking around with the trainer. I was like, I do this and I put myself in this much pain with my mantra of I want to be able to do what my characers can do.
I am
Like,
never
that's
going to
my-
be able to
Sure.
do anything my D&D characters can do. I'm just saying.
I want to be able
Yeah.
to cast spells and talk to animals.
You know?
Teleport.
I don't think I've ever created a Pathfinder character, but I've written a lot of characters based on people, just for one.
Ooh, but yourself is
Def-
different. I feel like characters always have a little bit of yourself in them.
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
But I can't say I've ever like flat out said, "Hey, this person is the inspiration for this character." For my Pathfinder characters, now for like my own fiction writing, heck yeah, I base it off of all kinds of people that I know. So it's a little different. And then, granted, most of my Pathfinder characters that I first started out with, I actually based off of characters that I'd written in fiction, and I just tweaked a couple things.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
so in answer to that question, I would say,
No.
yeah, all the time.
What?
What?
And I'm going to take this from the standpoint of a game master because that's most of what I do. I will make an NPC and just be like, this seems like one of the guys from work. So just sort of take like
okay,
elements
yeah,
of his
yeah.
character in and put
That's
him
a lot
in.
of people.
I also have, just on the subject of enemies and everything, specifically taking elements of a person. We all went to school, and people in school are horrible.
They suck.
Generally speaking, I have taken elements of these people that I've known from school, where bully from back in grade school. I understand his motivation, and sometimes they're real world ogres, and you can then translate that into a literal ogre in a literary sense, and understand this idea of it's a big brutish person that just because they grew up to be larger than everyone else thinks that gives them the right to do things that they don't have the right to do. So yeah, I would say that I use people from my life as inspiration for a number of characters that I include in, even though I usually try my best not to do caricatures of them. So yeah, I would say that I do take inspiration from people that I know in the real world to make NPCs, and that is a great suggestion also for GMs out there. That if you're just like, okay, if you ever go to the bar and you know a bartender at the bar, or you have a friend of yours that is a bartender, instead of having this be a generic bartender at a bar in Golarion or wherever it is in Ustalov, have it be like, what would Mike be like if he had to tend a bar for half-orcs? And just roll with it.
All right. Lastly, a suggestion. Can you put somewhere in the notes or at the end of a session, after session, some of the source material you used to research ancient Egypt outside of Pathfinder sourcebooks? In particular, it sounds like the players know a fair amount about Egyptian gods and culture, and I'm curious if they can recommend any sources.
Now, this actually sounds like it'd be a fun thing to, now that we have a blog,
Yeah.
to add this as a blog article for the books that we've read through previously, some suggestions on simple approaches. Yeah, I think we've all just accumulated this knowledge and love of Egyptology over
Well,
a long life.
I was cleaning out my closet this week and I came across this oversized coffee table book on Egypt that I've had since I was like a little girl. Like my mom bought it before I was even born. And I found it in her closet when I was like 5 or 6 and I loved it. And I remember we were getting ready to move and we were having a garage sale and she'd put it outside with all the other books with like a $5 sticker on it because it's a pretty big oversized book. And I went into my piggy bank and got $5 and gave my mom $5 so I could keep this book. And it's still in my closet. So I mean, it's old. It was published, you know, in the 70s. So some of the stuff has been outdated and everything, but I still have it.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to keep that book forever because I've loved Egypt since I was a little girl.
Yep.
And that was I read that book cover to cover when I was a kid several times.
I mean, I've always just been a lover of anything mythology related, but we had the advantage of being in an area where half-price books are aplenty. And so Jess and I used to spend many an hour actually in the reference section
Yep.
of Half Price, and I have a collection of books from multiple mythologies. I think Rick's actually using one of them right now for this.
The fiction writer horde.
Yeah, basically. I have reference books for all kinds of stuff, but my love of Egyptian mythology came from a field trip that I went on when I was a kid. And there was this whole presentation on mummification and everything, and it just was so fascinating. And so between my collections of books and that giant yellow book that I had with King Tut on the cover I used, it was like an encyclopedia of all world cultures and everything. But it was always fascinating. It was mine wasn't just limited to ancient Egypt, but there is always just kind of that mysterious fascination. Probably because my dad also watched PBS with me a lot, and there was that whole thing of, oh, we found the secret chamber in this thing, and we're going to do this whole special on what we think is behind it. And then at the very end of it, there's nothing there. Oh my God, it was so frustrating, and I still don't think they figured it out. And that was like 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting hearing you guys talk about it. I also was one of those kids that just really liked Egyptian mythology, and it was just one of those things. I don't remember a time I didn't. What also really kind of solidified more of the historical aspect is I had a world history class, and I mean we went way in depth with this stuff. I went through almost every single pharaoh in order, from the unification of Egypt all the way up to fall of Egypt. It was one of those really interesting things because I had never gone that deep into a foreign history at all. I'm a little bit different in that I'm the new age tech guy, so I Google a lot. Mm-hmm. I have found so many interesting articles.
It's funny because Rachel and I lived in South Korea for a little bit, and while we were there, one of the things that we made sure to do was to go see the King Tut exhibit, which was written in Korean, which neither of us spoke.
No, it was in English too.
It had English too, though, so that worked out well, but we didn't know at the time.
Yeah.
We just kind of hoped. So that obsession with Egypt goes a long way back. Mm-hmm. But it is for more than just Egypt. It's just in general mythology.
Yeah, mythologies.
Recently I was I'm working on Sagira, like a short story vignette for Sagira, kind of like Onuris's, and I wanted her to have a ledger. And so that led me to look up ciphers, which then led me to look up ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, which led me to Middle Egyptian hieroglyphs, which are called demotic hieroglyphs, which inspired Phoenician. Kind of interesting. But the University of Chicago has compiled the world's first demotic Egyptian to English dictionary for free on their website. I can put the link somewhere. It's really cool because it has all of the symbols and the words that they kind of translate to. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not going to write this in Egyptian like that. And so I had to pull myself back out of it. I
We'll add
into
that
research
into the show
holes.
notes, though.
This is the kind of historical rabbit hole that people go down.
Yes. And being a big fan of really weird things, because the reason that I know so much about the fact that Victorians ate mummy dust is that I read a listicle once, and then I was like, that can't be true. And then I jumped down the rabbit hole on the internet to verify that source forever. And I was like, man, that's so creepy. And cannibals, that's a thing. But if you're into really weird things on the internet, you're gonna find weird things about Egypt too.
Edgar Allan Poe has a really weird short story about a mummy unwrapping.
They were really into that. That was a thing. They were horrible.
If I could add actually two final things on this. First off, we mentioned at the top that the fine folks over at Nerds on Earth just did an article on Horus. So I would definitely check out over there and check out that article on Horus because I thought it was very well done. And,
I really liked it.
Maybe share it, drop them a couple lines, and see if I'm pushing for best set next.
For obvious reasons.
I really like that
obvious
article, but I already knew everything in it just because I'd researched Horus a lot for Onuris.
Yeah, I know a lot about that.
Some of us were learning new things.
You're gonna have to try harder, Clay, if you're gonna get Heather to know new information.
Yeah, teach her about the non-Marvel Loki.
I know about that too.
He was interesting.
How do you think I don't know about that? Okay, anyway.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm going to stop everyone else from going on a tangent about this, but if you get a chance to, and I don't know how many of our listeners are gamers, but the Explorer option for Assassin's Creed Origin.
Yeah, the
has a
Discovery
lot-
Tour.
The Discovery Tour on
has
there
a lot
is
of information.
Oh,
fantastic.
cool. They did a study on it, a real study, to see if it was effective in teaching kids about ancient Egypt, and it was okay. It was decently effective.
It was almost as effective as having a teacher teach it. So which was really impressive for a
anyway.
not educationally focused.
Considering I used Assassin's Creed in my classroom before, and all the boys were like, yes, and even some of the girls were like, ooh, awesome.
Very, very well researched.
Yeah, so that is pretty cool, and I think that there is a free version of the game available that just has the Discovery Tour
I
online.
think so,
So
yeah.
I'll look into that, and if I
yeah.
can find that, I'll include that in the show notes as well.
That's cool.
I would also like to point out that TJ has provided us with a wealth of Egyptian-style pictures, of which you may have seen some updates on our website as we are using them for the background pictures for our episodes on there. So if you want to go on there and check those out.
That's
Let's
really
see.
cool.
works for it. Thank you, TJ.
Yes, TJ, awesome, cool pictures. Hopefully, we haven't all seen them, but we trust Rick.
It's the first mistake.
And
Well,
it probably was.
It would be
he
the
made
last.
the mistake of making me the person in charge of this, so we're all making mistakes. So, moving on, we have a second email. Thanks, TJ. We answered hopefully everything and probably more than you even ever wanted. All right, Shane has written us an email. Shane gave us a real town. We don't do that here. Where is Shane from?
Oh, we already made
Kinja.
somebody from Thrushmore.
Shane is,
so.
I believe, from British Columbia, so we will give him that shout out.
Okay, sure, he's from there, but like, where is he actually from?
Yeah,
Taldor?
we can- Taldor.
I don't know the
Make
city of
double a
Taldor.
search.
But, oh wait, no,
It's
no,
not
he's
in the
British
email.
Columbia. That's up north, so he could be from your city.
From Urison? That's like
Urison.
Russia.
I don't know.
We're not wishing him into Urison,
Well, we're
sir.
somewhere
He
close.
can be from Magnamar. Magnamar's a cool place.
Magnoir's pretty cool.
All right, sure, we'll go with that. Also, let's be honest, there's nowhere in Golarion that's a happy place.
That's true.
Depending on what makes you happy. All right, Shane from Magnamar says, hello. Loving the podcast so far. Thanks for
Shane.
putting it out there. I really enjoy how NPCs are worked into the story both by Rick in bringing them to life and by everyone else for their efforts to engage them as people and not just plot points.
Thank you, Shane.
Makes it much more immersive. Great role playing all around. Well, thank you.
Thank you. We try.
Yeah,
I'm glad we
we
put
tried.
you in the lovely city of Magnamar.
Yes.
I was wondering if you could detail how the party handles loot. It sounded like the beneficiary of a found magic item, such as Onuris with the scarab shield, needs to give the other PCs a portion of its value in gold. Is that correct? I would love to use this system in my games, especially one where I'm playing a monk and we never find monk things. Smiley face. Keep up the good work. This is going to be...
Shane.
This is
All
gonna
right,
be Jordan.
all right, Jordan.
Actually-
Give a brief description.
So this is a good opportunity to speak to the GMs out there, because I've got a couple of questions about delegation. I do find that delegating things out to players is a good thing. I don't keep track of treasure. Jordan keeps track of treasure. Rachel handles the med kit and all of these sort of items they find. Heather tracks our timeline, which is probably why you hear her asking me for like more detailed questions on things periodically, because she writes
How
down.
do you spell that? Is the most common one.
But she writes down like the first date that the game began and every date that follows that as the story progresses, and Heather keeps track of all of those and the events that take place. And you'll notice that I read out to Jessica the experience that the party gains from every one of these. Like, most of the time, I have no idea how close the party is to a level up.
So, Jordan, treasure, explain.
Okay, so to not make this like super complicated, the way that we do it is actually more of an accounting system, which means that whenever you get loot, that's the party's loot. So
Wait, no, please keep listening.
I know, as everybody starts going.
So,
Hey, specifically, Shane, this is coming from our party monk.
Who has an abacus? But yeah, we so basically we take all the treasure, we pool it together, and then what I do is I divide that by the number of people. That tells you how much everybody gets. If you take magic items out, I then deduct the value of that item out. So
of
that's
your
how
pool.
out of
The-
your
the
amount.
half value.
Yeah, so
The sell value.
say the total is 20,000, so that's divided by 4 is 5,000 each, and Onuris takes an item that
Is 1,000 gold.
Is 1,000 gold. He only
which means
gets
it's worth 2,000, but it's worth half.
Yeah, so it would full price is 2,000. It sells for 1,000. So we keep Onuris gets 1,000 taken away from his pot of 5,000 and only gets 4. That way he's paying for the item, but everybody else still gets their full share of the loot.
Gets the same amount of gold as if the item was sold.
Yeah, that's the system that we use. It seems to be most fair. I'm going to actually put together a blog post
Yeah,
on
we're gonna
exactly
do
step by
blog
step
posts.
how I do
Actually-
it. Yeah, people have actually been asking a lot about that.
The next question is in the same vein from Listexit and Vulling it.
Dyslexic
did it
and loving
correctly.
it. Did you really?
I just said it correctly, thank you.
I just talked over you.
Liz Desic?
Yes, it successful.
Dexing and bowling it.
Yep, Liz Desick and bowling it. Anyway, on Reddit, asked how we handle our med kit, because we reference that like all the time, because we don't have anything in it right now.
Yeah, there's nothing in it, but I'm usually the one who takes care of the med kit. For the med kit, I tend to divide the potions and wands into 2 columns and everything, and I put like Cure Light, Cure Mod, Cure Serious, whatever, and then anytime we use it, I check it off. And then I usually have a separate section that's potions, scrolls, and wands, which could be the lesser restorations, the raised deads, any of that stuff. And we just keep it all together so that if we do get through a horrible slog and everybody's out of healing, then I can just be like, oh wait, we have like 30 charges out of Cure Light Wounds, and then we can just be...
And it's centralized so that it's easier to see what everybody has versus that. It's only backfired one time that I can remember having it all on one place.
It's made up of stuff that we find in the treasure. So
Yeah, we don't
instead of
count
like
that.
selling the wand or counting it as loot, we throw it in the med kit, and whoever needs anything can use it. And they don't have to pay it back. If you need a potion of Cure Light Wounds and the med kit has 5 and you need one, you just take one.
Yeah, that's another thing I actually forgot to mention is there's a separate designation I put for party items, which are things that aren't counted towards the total value of treasure, which are stuff that we throw in the med kit usually.
Yeah.
The interesting thing with the med kit is also includes a lot of things that would not even be necessarily considered standard healing items.
Oh,
a lot of times it's if you find like a restorative ointment or scrolls of restoration
Antidotes.
Basically
or
anything
or even anything that removes status effects.
Yeah.
I imagine in this party, if you find any scrolls of remove curse, you're just going to go, well, let's keep that for
Medkit.
later in case.
Yeah.
Well, assuming we don't use them right off the bat, but
Well, right now. Yeah.
We also generally, Rachel generally does the med kit. So a lot of the time it ends up being that Rachel's not the healer, but Rachel has the med kit, which is cool because if your healer goes down, it's nice that your healer isn't the one that also carries your med kit.
Yeah.
Because then, the rogue can be, well, I have a potion. Let me feed it to the
A lot of
cleric.
times, your primary healer doesn't carry the med kit, but like your secondary
Yeah.
person, like the person that can use magic device. So if your cleric goes down, you're not.
So that like Sitra could pull out, if we eventually have a wand in there, Sitra could pull out a wand and bring Onuris up if he's out.
Or if Onuris was turned to stone,
Yeah.
the scroll of stone to flesh wouldn't be on the guy that's a statue now.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely also keep those in the med kit.
And occasionally we will, if we know we're going to be in a situation where we have to split the party or something like that,
Yeah.
we might divvy out a couple of the potions. But it's still...
Usually the potions are fairly well divvied out ahead of time anyway, so that everyone at least has a little bit of healing on them.
We'll also sometimes pull our money and buy wands.
So Jessica,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
keep track of who or what gave us the experience so that, if Rick asks, did I give you experience for X, I have an answer to make sure it's accurate. And then in general, I just keep track of like how much experience we have and tell us when we level up.
Most of the time, I didn't even know what our experience total is. Like that's why we're sometimes asking Jess. It's like, how close are we? Because she has a notebook that she literally is just a list of the addition as we go down.
And what did we fight? What's the challenge?
Yeah,
rating?
and
What's
I don't
the
even
XP?
think that probably in the past 3 years, longer than that, since we've been playing together, I've ever written down an experience total on any of my character sheets.
Nah.
And we get away with that because I know there are some groups out there who everyone keeps their own experience and they'll play if a member isn't there and sometimes the person that isn't there
Yeah,
won't
we
experience.
don't play if everybody can't make it.
Yeah.
And I keep track of like all 5 games we play currently, so I have a spiral that has several different divided sections, which I highly recommend if you're an analog person, which I am. But yeah, so that's
I have
me.
a different. Usually, if I get one of the 5 subjects college ruled notebooks, I can fit about 2 adventure paths in a notebook. But when we start a new adventure path, if I've got like 3 notebooks going right now because of all the games we're doing. Usually, I can fit 2 in one notebook. It just depends on. Some sessions I barely write anything, and then like episode 24, I jotted down over 1.5 pages of information. So
And that's why we're often like, Heather, who was that guy? And Heather's like, well, I don't know, I didn't write it down.
Yeah.
Like, that's Heather's the one that keeps track of that stuff.
Yeah, so
it is also just kind of a fun thing to be able to look back at later. I've always found it interesting to, especially when you're doing 2 campaigns that take place at close to the same time and in generally the same area. So for instance, running Curse of the Crimson Throne following running Rise of the Rune Lords is if you actually keep an accurate timeline that includes what day it is and what's going on, you can literally say, okay, well, at this time period, this is what's going on in the events of Rise of the Rune Lords while your characters are doing this. So you're walking by a tavern and you heard it's like, oh, did you hear about blah, blah, blah that took place over in Sandpoint? Not really a spoiler, the adventure path starts in Sandpoint. And then someone could be like, oh yeah, I totally heard about that. And then the party knows, generally speaking, where they are in relation and the time to those other things. And so periodically I get to throw out things that it's like, oh, we're going to this city. And I'm like, yeah, but keep in mind that your character that did this thing in this city won't actually be here for another 2 years.
And I think what the rule is, if a book was published in 2018, it's 4718 in Golarion. Is that generally the way they use it?
The adventure paths take place in the year, or start in the year that they are released.
Yeah.
And then they go wherever they go from there.
So, for instance,
Yeah,
Onuris
I'll-
Mask was released in 2014.
Yeah, it's 4714.
So it's 4714.
It's Feyrast, which is March.
Which means that if you're playing something along the lines of Return of the Rune Lords, you are actually doing something 4 years after the event of the adventure path that we're doing right now.
Yeah. And like Rick said, it's really handy because we kind of have an idea of where our other characters are, what our other characters could be doing, what's happened, what hasn't,
That's
know.
fun.
So, long and short GMs out there, delegation is definitely a good thing. And with some of the things that they brought up with second edition and the hero point system that they're implementing, where you can give players bonus hero points for doing things outside of just showing up and playing the game, definitely something to look into. We will be writing an article about
Yeah,
this.
I think we're gonna-
So, yeah, check it out.
Yeah,
It'll be a
well,
series.
each of us will write a blog post about our
Kinda
little
our
jobs
part of it, yeah.
and our suggestions.
All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks for joining us for this after party.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Good luck, Pathfinders.
We all need to come up with our own sign off.
I just say bye in a weird voice.